This is Malcolm Joseph on BID show.
That's right. You gotta
Hello.
love it, BIDS. Bringing you international guests from all over the place. You know, if you guys know the show, you know we love music. You know we love bass players. We've had some incredible bass players on the show in the past. And Malcolm Joseph joins us. He's actually a friend of Andrew Casserly Stewart, who was on the show a few weeks ago, who also manages Matt Hoy's career. Matt Hoy sings backup for UB40. And so we're talking to Malcolm in part because he's a musician and we love talking to musicians. And he and I have been chopping it up off mic, just talking about all of the things that we love about music in general. And I thought, Malcolm, we might just do just real fast background so folks can know who you are. I mean, there's a lot of it out there, but give us like a 2 minute bit about where you're from, how you grew up, how you got to where you got to. Because look, in terms of making music, it is your profession. We were talking about this.
Yeah,
It is how you made a living for decades. And so help us
yeah,
understand
I've been
what that
doing that
looks
for a long time.
like. Yeah.
Well, I'm Malcolm Joseph. I'm from London originally. I come from a place in Hackney in London. I started playing really when I started at school, probably about the age of 13. Got involved in that, and one thing led to another. I got bitten really. I think it was all the times of playing with a tennis racket in front of a mirror, listening to my little transistor radio, inspired me to kind of do it properly. To break it down from there on, I kind of formed a group with co-writers, and we became a band called Seventh Heaven. We started on our own back. We met a manager who kind of wanted to help us and saw the light that we were shining. And fortunately, he was in the industry. He was partially the lead singer for the Alan Parsons Project at the time. And we were sort of strapped out to do it ourselves. So basically, we financed everything ourselves, did our own white labels, went to the bank manager to get a loan to kind of print out 500 copies. And then after that, it was history. Next thing we knew, we were on the radio, we were doing BBC radio, and we had our first single, Hot Fun, that got into the top 40 in the national charts in 1985. From
Wow.
there on, we ended up touring, we ended up supporting Kool and the Gang, we supported Womack and Womack, and we worked with, I'm trying to remember, Kool and the Gang, Womack and Womack, yeah, and the SOS band. Yeah, that was another great band that we worked with at the time. So we kind of done our touring, did the whole bit, couple of singles, usual scenario, just about to get the album out, put the album together. We were signed to CBS at the time in the UK, and we got dropped. And the reason why we got dropped is that Sony had taken over CBS, and Michael Jackson had just released his album Bad, and the whole focus was all kind of stemmed on that. And so we've all had to go our separate ways, and we tried hard to kind of continue what was going on, but inevitably the band split up, and I went my way and everyone went their ways. Eventually, after kind of deliberating whether what I was going to do in my career, I kind of came across a few friends that introduced me to a guy called Sean Oliver. He used to be in a kind of radical kind of punk jazz band called Rip Rig and Panic. And he wanted me to work with his sister, Andrea Oliver, who's a massive cook pundit, like celebrity in the UK. So we put a band together called Her, and we kind of did loads of recording, and one thing led to another. I got approached by Nana Cherry, who was really good friends with her at the time. I worked with her, and we did some live performances and various little bits and pieces. And then from Nana Cherry, I got offered to MD, musical director, Massive Attack, who never actually had a band at the time and never really played with anyone who was like, you know, any musicians as such as a group. So I put a band together for them in 1991, and they had it. Obviously, from then on, they just went sky high. Yeah, and now from there, from there, it was loads of different sessions, and the usual kind of trail as you do in Korea. Done a few albums, played on Desiree's album, worked with more cheap singer.
How big is the music scene in the UK, London, I guess specifically, but how big is that compared to, I mean, the States physically is just so massive. You can have completely different sounds like Southern rock. No, Georgia Southern rock. No. New Orleans and Dallas and all these places that are hundreds of miles apart. But London isn't like that. So you can literally be at a cafe and eating next to the next person you're going to work with because you're all there. Like there are only so many places.
They're all on top of each other. Unfortunately, now because of what we've had in the last year and a half, loads of little venues are shut. And that was the thing about London. It was just like, you were walking into a melting pot. And sometimes, usually, a new genre will kind of appear from nowhere because of a combination of different players. Like you say, there'll be a Southern rock kind of player, and then there'll be a kind of Parliament Funkadelic player. Then there'll be someone who's like playing Congolese African music, and they're all sitting next to each other, and they combine this whole kind of mixture of music. So it's for London, it's really tightly knit, a really close knit situation.
I was going to add a couple of questions I want to ask you. When I think about seeing the gang, I love them. I'm from Oakland, and we live in the ASD, with those celebrations with songs, and there's so many hits, and so many things that people forget about, like Africa, and then the other half, and somehow they're relevant enough in band APDO with Bono and George Michael and all those folks. So why does a band? Why does Kool and the Gang work in Great Britain? I mean, what about their sound? It seems to me such an American sound, but that's always usually you guys have to retranslate our own sound so we get them again. Though you guys are great at this. What do you make of all that?
It's just the translations. It's obviously, I think, with musicians who've grown up listening to different kind of cultures of American music, they kind of interpret it as something of their own, and they know what they've, working with Kool and the Gang, it's a familiar sound. It's kind of, the UK is kind of brass orientated. It's got a lot of kind of brass band stuff. It's very kind of grassroots. It's very funky and very experimental. So anything that comes from America, it can translate into what's already happening here, which is quite easy enough. It's like when, bands like Led Zeppelin went to America, the Beatles went to America. It's just like this formula that we've created, that we've pushed over the water to sit into your Southern rock, your pop, and everything else, and we can kind of simulate it. I don't know. That's how it works like that.
Yeah. No, but it is interesting. Jimi Hendrix had to go there to get discovered over here,
Yeah, who else was it? Iggy Pop, Lou Reed was here. That great album. What was that famous album? Transformer, right?
Transformer, right? Yeah.
He came here to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Which is like, for me, it was quite like, what? You're coming from the heart of what you're trying to achieve in London. You come to London to experience a whole new genre of how you want to interpret your music. So, British musicians are very adaptable.
And I guess, I mean, and I don't want to not indicate to folks that the British Isles aren't full of a lot of different places where totally different music comes from. It's just like accents. You guys have 1,000 accents, and you all know specifically where they're from and everything. I'm just saying, we have more places for make you can go to
Sorry, Peter. It's I think the vocal, sometimes it'll come in and out and it goes back. So
Yeah, our
transatlantic information. Come on, data stream.
I guess what I'm saying, I'll try to say it. Hopefully, you can hear it. The ability to go somewhere in the U.S. There's a lot of places to go, but ultimately, all bands in the British Isles have to go to London to make it in some way. And you're right, you meet that African, you know, uh, percussionist or whatever it is, and something like ska becomes something. I mean, ska doesn't make any damn sense, you know.
Yeah, but there's like when I was in, when I was ever kind of going to the States, there's loads of ska bands,
Right, right.
like it's what was it, the Whirling Dervishes, I think they were called, or something like that. I'm sure it was like American ska bands, and I'm shocked. I'm just like, wow. But ska's from Jamaica, so we've all kind of like, as far as like London's concerned, it's quite a diverse. The diversity is huge, so there's little Caribbean, West Indian, everyone's on top of each other. So there's always a reason to share each other's music and the influences. So.
And when it comes to funk, you talked about funk. I know you've got, what would you say is your home genre? Let me ask you that first.
Oh, mine is, my home genre is funk, soul, rock, combined, reggae. It's a combination. It's a mixture.
Of course, because you're from Great Britain. And then
yeah.
Yeah. Who do you look at and you're like, these are the musicians that I learned this genre from? Because funk is very, again, it seems like it's very American, but a whole lot of funk. Funk is sometimes hard to describe, and sometimes you'll hear a song. It could be ABC, something that's decidedly not funk, and you're like, wait a second, this is funky. There's something funky in here, right? So there's a ton of funk in British music. So talk about your funk influences.
My funk influences, it started in 1978. And I got invited from a friend to say, "Oh, look, I'm going to go and see my uncle play at the Hammersmith Odeon in London." And we were like, "Right, great." She said, "Do you want to come? It's my birthday treat." So we ended up going to the Hammersmith Odeon, and lo and behold, it was Parliament Funkadelic doing their first ever show, and her uncle was in the band at the time. So this was completely mind-blowing, even though it was like, you had your James Brown, you had your Al Green, you had your Donny Hathaways and everyone, but this influence was astounding. And then from that day on, I sort of learned about the kind of the way it's arranged and how it moves. What's the initial sound? How does it make you dance? What's the whole aspect of making you dance? And then you can hear it, then you kind of follow the trail and you see this huge musical trail. And that influence is kind of my influence at the time. As far as arrangements, George Clinton had a kind of unique way of putting songs together and arranging a huge band to play certain songs. So the influences was definitely Parliament Funkadelic, James Brown.
How do you describe what funk is then? I know we can kind of talk about more than what is, like, reggae starts out with a drum bell, and the groove gets started. That's reggae. I can hear that all day long. Punk is downstroke, 2 minutes, 12 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? What is funk though?
Funk is about finding your space in a beat. James kind of like initiated it. Everything's on the one, everything, But for me, it's play less, hear more, if you know what I mean. And with funk, it gave you an aspect of creating a nice platform of, a nice space for everyone to interact and be a part of. So it was like a kind of like, hey, look, here's the party. What have you got to bring to the party? So you clear the space for everyone to be involved in, you know.
Right.
Are you all right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just working on my sound stuff here. There's apparently a little bit of a problem, but we're working on it. Okay. So creating space, that means someone has to hold that space down. This is one thing that Mick Gillette taught us about funk. He said, you know, as long as the bass player stays home, or as long as the drummer stays home, someone has to stay home so that as a horn player, I can pull and create tension, right? And then get
Yeah.
out of the way. Someone else do it.
Exactly. And that's where we kind of come into, like, you know, a really solid groove. You got a solid groove, you haven't got to do anything more. And anyone wants to express themselves on top of that, they're free to kind of do their thing. So yeah, it is all very, very, very much so groove based. You know, it's just like, you know, if you can shake your booty to it, then you're on the right track, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had Allie Willis on the show. She, just for the audience, she's written so many incredible platinum songs: Boogie Wonderland, um, September, In the Stone. So many great songs, and I'm talking about Earth, Wind, and Fire songs specifically here. But she's just written songs for everybody. And she talked about how her and Maurice were talking, and she had some words written for this song. And you probably know the story. He's like, you don't need those words. You don't, words never at the expense of the groove. The groove is always the thing, right? And so if
Yeah.
if you got the groove, you can just go you know.
Yeah. And everyone would be going, yeah, it's fantastic, that's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, as long as you've got that groove and that's sitting, everything is just kind of like, you know, like jigsaw puzzle, just kind of comes together.
Yeah. Another example of that, we did this whole biography of the Roland David was nominated into the NAMM Hall of Fame for technical. And so we had Egyptian Lover come out. And I don't know how familiar you are with Egyptian Lover, but you know, he sort of that's his that's what he plays. And when he figured out this sound, this tick 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 tick, that was like a feedback loop that no one knew how he made it, right? And he was one of
Yeah.
the guys to live perform with an 808, you know, when it was really becoming a sound. And he heard it and he realized the crowd loved it. And so his lyric that he did as like a DJ over the top, he just went, yes, 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 yes. You know, there was, because the groove was there and he was just hyping the crowd with just saying yes, you know?
Yeah. That's it. You know, once that, you know, that's what I'm saying is like earlier with a groove, as long as people are shaking, shaking the booty, you can do what you need. You can do what you want. As long as you got the attention of people's bass and drums. Bass is the one that makes you glide, all right, and slide on the dance floor.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. So it's all about the groove, you know. That's it. That's all it is. Space and just a nice tight beat, and that's all you need. And everyone else can have fun with it. You know, you can do what you need.
Let's continue to explore this, but now let's look at it. You're looking at your boss. You're looking at Nana Cherry, and what she thinks is the groove, and what you know is the groove, aren't always going to be the same thing. So how do
That's right.
you look at your boss and give them the groove that they need? Because it's not just a groove; it's got to be their groove.
Yeah, you got to give them their groove. So you know, first thing you just say, "How about this?" You know, we've got initial. We have a, you know, you have a plan and you have a kind of initial insight to what you might be wanting to produce as a song, and then you say, I quite like the way you're playing it, but this is the way I would do it." And then you kind of have that influence over kind of creating that groove, you know. It can, you know, hi Nana, look, you know, I've got this great idea. How about this? And as soon as you hear, that's amazing, you know, you're in. You know.
Yeah. And then how do you do that within a band? Like, you know, in Seventh Heaven or any of the smaller projects that you work on, when you guys are trying to agree, I mean, again, agreeing on what the groove isn't always easy in a group. So how do you sort that out when you're writing your own stuff?
When you're right, well, you know, you just come up with an idea, and it's always the bass player usually. I'm sorry, but anyone else out there is going to say no, it isn't. it's always a bass player and a drummer who just sit there and sit on something for about 15 minutes and they're happy. Then everyone else thinks, oh, right, okay, this is great. We're all happy about this. And then they'll start to work in towards it. Sometimes you might get the guitarist or a keyboard player might have the groove in his kind of format, the way he would interpret it. But as soon as you put the bass and drums on top of it, he will change his idea because he will hear something different again. So you always have to give the influence of like, we're solid, I'm creating the space. This is where we're at. Enjoy. Play how you just play your thing. Play what you feel in your soul. Play what you feel in your heart. And you know it's going to work. And then you start kind of putting the ideas together and solidifying it, you know?
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because it is a lot of modern music is drums and bass. And that's, it used to be, we had a guy on the show named Sammy Nestico, and he just passed in January, 96 years old. And he grew up in the big band era, and his home, genre was swing and big band. And his home instrument was the trombone, which used to be a soloing instrument. In his day, he worked with Tommy Dorsey, and so he thinks differently about how to approach music. Now it's the guy in the drum riser. Now it's the bass player who creates that thing. Do you think, are we seeing an evolution where we're going to the physical computer keyboard as the home instrument for people? And that's going to change even bass's dominance and the drum's dominance?
Well, I think that's happened back in the late 80s. That was a scenario that occurred here. A lot of bass players and drummers were put out by Lindrum and 808s and the Moog synths and stuff. So it was a whole changeover. It has happened before. The influences of the keyboard scenario kind of programming came into effect. So we were kind of defunct. We were kind of drummers and bass players weren't really initially kind of required to kind of create songs, grooves, which was, tragic, but it all came back again. It's always a big cycle. And it came back and everyone's like, we need this drummer, we need that bass player. We need to get them what they're thinking, what their heart is thinking, not a machine, to get that influence.
And the time. Whenever I bring up timing, I always think about Hot Fun in the summertime. And you had a song called Hot Fun. I also want to know if that's inspired at all by Sly. But that Hot Fun in the summertime, man, time is all over the place. If you quantize that, it'd be a mess. It would.
Yeah.
People are coming in when they want, it's.
That's a freedom. That was a freedom. It was like, it wasn't about being on top of everything. It was about the whole combination that would work and flow together.
Yeah.
It was never, oh, right, okay, we've all got to go to 125 BPM and we'll stick on that. Someone will be playing 120, one will be playing 123, But it was a kind of melting pot of creating the vibes. That's the thing. It was initially how you created the vibe. How do you create this source of this song? How do you kind of like utilize different players who are different ways of playing into one song and trying to keep them together?
Even the vocals have different time, because it's too hot to rush, right? And so they all kind of get there. They're never out of sync, but they're never like in the same kind of time.
Oh yeah. You couldn't put it on Pro Tools and try and sort it out. Simple as that. Forget it.
Error.
That's exactly. You just have your computer crashing constantly.
But there it is, funky as hell, and it communicates that message of the song too. Like it serves the actual idea of the song.
Yeah, and like we were talking about funk, it's a character in itself. It's an amalgamation of different genres within each individual player. Someone might have a kind of a tendency to be a bit quicker than the others, but initially the bass and drums is just holding it down, just creates this nice easy cruise through. So you can wobble as much as you like and swing it as much as you like, but we're all going in the same path.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's a thing, right? Like we talked about this with Stewart Copeland and when like where one is and where he decides to play one, different places. Willie
Yeah.
Nelson is always behind it. Always, 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 always like just he had the drummer for it too though, because Paul could keep the beat right where it needed to be and let Willie come in where Willie needed to. That's by design. I mean, that's his art. That's what he does. How does a young person try to this is part of figuring out your voice, right? I mean, and Willie didn't do much on the guitar. He just played a D-shaped chord and went up and down the neck of the guitar. It's incredible. But you
Mm.
look at it and you're like, there's not a lot going on here, but oh my God, it's so incredible. So how does someone figure that out? I mean,
Yeah.
Malcolm, you've got a voice, you know what it is. You gave me 5 different home genres, right? So but that takes a time to put that soup together.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think it's a kind of dying art, a skill where you kind of utilize. It's like soul music. It's a soul thing. It's whatever comes to mind. You're not afraid to play it. If it's behind the beat or in front of the beat, you'll still play it as you do. Like playing with Grace and stuff. It was kind of inspiration. It's like reggae. Reggae is always played on the backbeat.
Yeah.
But with her with that particular way of her songs, you got a reggae feel, but it might have a rock kind of feel on top of it. But the reggae is sitting behind the beat like for instance, Private Life, which is a song which was written by the Pretenders originally. Now she's covered it, and even Chrissy Hynde said it's like that's the best version that I've heard of it. Now Chrissy Hynde started to play it a bit like what Grace did it, and it was all kind of when you actually play it, it's all so behind the beat, so laid back you'd fall over.
Right. Interesting. I want to get into Grace in a minute here, but before we do that, I want to talk about John Peel's impact on music. Now, John Peel's nothing here in the States. Some people might know who he is, but his impact on I don't know any modern band while he was alive is incredible. Is that possible anymore to do something like that? To have a DJ have that much control and that much influence in the industry where that's the place? Like you're a comedian and you got a guitar, that meant that your career had a proof that, you know. And John Peel, I mean, he, as far as from what I understand, like, Steel Pulse, U3, I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of band you were. If you had something, you had a feel something. Jimi Hendrix, a lot of different bands. What's John Peel's role in your mind? And then is it possible to still be a John Peel, or is that something else handled by something else?
I think with John, his ideal was he'll listen to everything. He never kind of like put a track on. I don't like this. He would listen all the way through, no matter what genre it came from, whether it was really badly recorded or a demo. He would listen to it, and this is like it's quite unique as we were talking about the Melting Pot. He was the kind of co-founder. He was the founder of the Melting Pot.
Yes.
He was the one that said, right, this is a melting pot. Everybody's got to know about it. And he wasn't shy to play anything, He listened to everything, and that's, when people or anyone who was up and coming or starting in their careers were getting influenced by all these different genres of British music at the time coming together. You had a choice of like, oh, I like a bit of that, I like a bit of this, I like a bit of that. And then you try and create your own sound out of it. So John was kind of inspirational for bands to do that. Whereas they say, right, we're just going to stick to the rock genre, we're going to stick to the pop genre, we're going to stick to reggae. We got the Clash. They're a rock band, but they play reggae, right? But they're not a rock band, they're a punk band. Some people will say they were a new wave band. It's just, he was influential as far as kind of getting people to listen to more than what they actually know. And yeah, God rest his soul, bless him. He was the Don. Yeah.
He really is. I mean, he was the guy that stirred the soup and made incredible things come up. Again, it's Jimi Hendrix. You could just do this all day long with all of the bands. I think the Specials, or the Specials, AKA, depending on how you know the name of that band. There are just so
Yeah,
many of
depending
them.
on what side they were on. Yeah.
Yeah, the House Martins. I mean, you could do this. I could name bands and just knowing. I'm not even taking a risk in naming a band because everybody was on there. It's incredible. Is that possible? Can someone still be that curator of all music like that?
I'm sure that, yeah, I think so. I think what happens is that I think, John Peel had a grip, had the reins on it. And it influenced a lot of other people to kind of, a lot of other DJs or listeners to kind of portray, to say this is British music, this is what the different genres that are coming out of it, these are the influences out of it. There are DJs who are playing that kind of like thinking the same way as John Peel, but there'll only be one John Peel. He's set it in motion already. So everyone's kind of like on his kind of terms, if you know what I mean. Well, if we're going to be like John Peel, we need to listen to everything. We need to understand it, focus on where it's going, what genre. You don't pigeonhole it.
Yeah, pigeonholing and talking about the Clash because they are such a unique band. They're they're icons in the punk genre, but they sound nothing like the Sex Pistols. They sound nothing like the Ramones. And yet
They won't. Yeah,
shit.
they're totally different. X-ray specs. One of our famed like the Generation X, and now Billy Idol went back to the States and became Billy Idol. But here he was playing like, when he was with Generation X, it was a different kind of genre completely from what he was doing, from what I remember. You got the Damned,
Yeah,
you got the Ruts,
yeah.
which were kind of like, so it's a real thorough British sound in itself. So you can never put them in a pigeonhole. You can never say, right, okay, you're going to go fit into that slot. You're going to fit into that slot.
How many radio stations are there back in that time? You guys listen to is it shortwave? I mean, we have so many stations. If you do shortwave, you can get everything. You can list off everything. But how did you guys listen to the radio?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last bit of that,
Like,
Pete.
how do you
Sorry.
do the radio? Do you have channels? Like, are there a set number of channels? Is there not many of them? Are there a whole load of channels? And then, the programming? I mean, it just seems like someone like John Peel has the attention of a lot of people. I don't know that
Yeah.
that would work here in the States just because we had so many options. You might have 100 channels in a given area to choose from on the radio.
Yeah, we were very restricted. We didn't have many things. I think, Desert Island Discs, we had pirate radio stations. That's the thing that was kind of introducing various new musics. So there was a lot of pirate, and then you had the BBC, the normal stuff, what you can get on shortwave, or and that was it. But pirates radio stations, a lot of pirate radio stations were the ones that were feeding the youngsters at the time, were feeding the kids.
Yeah.
But we didn't have like, 100 stations in one part of the county like you do there. It's just like unbelievable amount of radio coverage and stuff there.
So you work with Grace Jones, and obviously she is another one of those things where she hasn't translated as well over to the United States. I'm not saying that she can't perform here and make a lot of money, but we think of her, if we remember her, we think of her as being a model from the 80s, right?
Yeah,
Maybe she was in a Bond film,
yeah,
and that's where it stops for us. But those of us that know that she's been. It's like Kylie Minogue. Kylie Minogue has been around and killing it for decades, but were like, we don't know her music here. Like, like, oh, she had a hit. Did she have a sister? That's it.
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Let's talk Grace Jones. And she's so damn good at so many things.
So yeah, it's quite phenomenal, really. You know, I always used to think, well, she's a bit of a model and a bit of a Hollywood star. How did she get time to put any music together? You know, but she did, and she's, you know, she's pretty kind of consistent as far as like writing songs and what she wants to hear. She commands what she wants to hear. She's very musical. She's extremely musical, to a lot of people's surprise. You know, especially me. I was like, wow, that's amazing. She's very kind of musical, very musically orientated. Yeah. Sorry, you keep cutting out a bit there, Peter. Sorry
Yeah,
about
I
that.
had, you know, I was trying to look something up here while I was talking to you. And got lost everywhere. So Grace Jones is musical. Again, shock to me, but when she hires someone, obviously she can hire anybody she wants, but she comes to you. So what is it about your ability to communicate with her that she gets so well? I mean, yeah, you guys are all in the same city. You're all, you know, whatever. Everybody knows everybody, but she did. She picked Malcolm. And what is it about what you deliver that makes sense to her? Because otherwise you'd be there one tour and you'd be gone, but you get her in some way. What is that?
My unique style of bass playing with her is how I can make her groove. It's how I sit into different genres of her musical career. You know, being able to play kind of like, you know, Love is a Drug to Jamaica Guy to Pull Up to the Bumper to going over there to going over there to doing that over there. And I, you know, it's just how I play. It's just the warmth and style I play, which is quite unique. So, you know, that's how I fitted in with her. And she loves bass. She does love bass, you know, she loves
Yeah.
bass. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
And
guys
so,
plan to get out on the road now that we're starting to get our hands wrapped around this COVID thing? Is there a plan for a tour, or is that
well, we were going to do a couple of shows this summer, but they've been pulled here. So
yeah?
it's a big no-no at the moment. We don't know what's going to happen next, really.
We're starting to open up here. Certain states are starting to do live things, allow full audiences. So hopefully it's coming pretty quick here within the year. But the intention is for the Grace and the band to go out and play them, right? When it's safe to do so.
Yeah, the intention is, you know, it's like Grace is in Jamaica at the moment, so we it is the intention to get back out. Yeah, definitely. She's got an album sitting there ready to go as well, which is I think is completed. So the whole idea of like what we were going to do last year was to promote the album, get new songs out, and do the whole tour. She was curating a show called the Meltdown Festival in London, and basically it's at the Royal Festival Hall, and she gets all her favorite artists to actually play in this 2 week festival of anyone, you know, like from the Yellow Magic Orchestra to Massive Attack, you know, anyone she's influenced by, she will get them to come and play at this festival. So that was pulled, which is a shame, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
COVID has just kind of shut a lot of things off. So
We were talking before the show off mic about people like Susie Quattro, who started playing in 1963. Jim Harris started the same year, and you know they're in their mid. Year old baby. Not just incredible. You know, I mean, really thanks animating this very the other thing about Grace is that like 7 really long. What's true? So what drives ladies? Like Susie Quattro just put out a new album, I think, in February. You know, Debbie Harry. I saw one of the last shows I saw was her live in 2019. You know, she's still
right,
doing she's touring with
she's
Elvis
still
Costello,
at it.
standing on stage.
I know watching Grace is quite an amazing feat of kind of like how did she do it? You know, she's
Yeah.
quite incredible. Yeah. So repeat the question a
Well, just
little
what
about
do you
the
attribute
question.
to? Why is she working so hard at 72 years old? Why is she wanting to go out and front a band? I mean, it's one thing to stand there and sing a song. Okay, great, but you got more to do when you front a. you've got to entertain that entire crowd. That's your job. That's what you do, right? Like moving and singing and talking at this level. When it comes to that, it's great.
Unbelievable, yeah. And she's like, Grace is she does Slave to the Rhythm, and we do a 10 to 12 minute version of it, and she's hula hooping all the way through it and walking over and around the stage. The very first time she ever did it, she never told us that she was going to do it. So we saw Grace walking on with this, wheeling this hula hoop on stage, and we were like, "Oh no, she's something's not right." And then she put the hula hoop on, and she was on the hula hoop for 10 minutes, and she was walking all around the stage, hula hooping through Slave to the Rhythm. She was getting up on platforms with heels on and getting up little stage platforms, still hula hooping. And it was just like, they're from a different generation, of really strong performers and women.
It's incredible. I mean, obviously she's worn heels her whole career,
Yeah.
doing it. I mean, Prince's body was breaking down from wearing heels, and he only did half a career, It's like,
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Bless him.
yeah, it's remarkable, and I love that we can go out and see these folks, still performing, still loving it. I mean, hula hooping for 10 minutes, I don't think I can even hula hoop for 1 minute.
I tried and I failed miserably. Yeah. She just laughed at me. That was it. Yeah, but it's quite incredible, and like you say, Debbie Harry's still out there having it. If Tina, bless her, Tina Turner, she would do it right until she fell off the stage, and that was the end of it for her.
Yeah, I saw BB in 2009, BB King, and
Yeah.
he just sat down. He couldn't do all of it anymore, so he just sat down and played. And actually, a lot of Debbie Harry's band sits down, but not Debbie. She's up there and she's running the show. She does. So she played with Elvis Costello, and Elvis plays a little faster than normal, and plays the hits and gets off the stage. But Debbie does a great job of, and that's not like, I love Elvis Costello. I've loved him my whole life, but he's just not a great live act. He's good. He does the job.
He's good. He's got an attitude, but he's not, he's not a performer as such.
Right. Yeah. He's like this. You're here for the songs. Here are the songs, and I can fit an extra song in if I play them all a little bit faster. So
yeah,
I got a lot of songs.
Yeah, he has got a lot of songs. Yeah, I used to like that whole Stiff Records scenario, that whole kind of batch of Reckless Eric and everyone else as well. That was quite amazing. Yeah.
Who are you listening to now? Who's younger? That you're like, man, this is it right here. Like, who excites you? Because so much of modern music, and this would be the old man in me coming out, but like trap to me is so similar now. Like there's no separation between one trap song and the next. It's just too easy.
Yeah. In London, we come from we had jungle, drum and bass, so it was always a kind of like that. It was always influenced by those, those particular genres, drum and bass, jungle, kind of developed into this kind of intellectual jungle. Then it was kind of, let's make it a bit harder, a bit faster. Trap came into it. The younger generations would just take all the stuff that we've kind of like was put before and just kind of rearranged it, spread it up or shortened it, chopped it up a different way, like what we did at the time. And that's how it kind of evolved. But it's, for us oldies, we're just going, oh yeah, we did that 20 years ago. That was like, you've just made it faster and more digital,
Yeah. But who's doing a good job? Who do you hear and you're like, man, this is great. I wish I was involved in this kind of stuff. Who makes you like almost envious? It's so good.
That's a really hard question. That's would make me envious. I like a lot of Anderson .Paak. He's great. Mono Neon stuff, that's been really kind of influential. That's really interesting. I like how he's kind of stepped outside the box and kind of did his thing and consistently did his own thing, and it stuck. That's a good influence. British bands, there's so many different British artists here. There's a young band that's worked here called The Native. They're really good. Yeah, there's so many. There's just so many different. It's just hard to kind of pin them all down, really.
I'm a big fan of Gregory Porter. Have you seen Gregory Porter?
Yeah, Gregory Porter. Yeah. He's great. Yeah,
I love it the most when he pushes his voice past the breaks and it kind of cracks on him because he's not
crack all the way. Yeah,
that way on purpose. Like he's like his love is so big, it just his voice breaks. I'm just like, oh, I love it when he gets to that spot when he really sells it.
Sells it. Yeah. Nana's been doing some new tracks. Nana Cherries. She's got quite a lot of her daughter Mabel. Have you heard of Mabel? She's quite influential over there, apparently. But she's a new up-and-coming artist. She's got some really lovely songs, beautiful voice, nice vibes. It's kind of like the sort of down-tempo kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Poppy, a little bit poppy. Yeah.
Let's talk about these Nub Sessions that you guys got going on. You're doing lives, and you're part of that whole group of people. Let's inform folks. By the way, if you guys look on the bottom of the page, you'll see the Nub Sessions link. Just go to YouTube and type in Nub Sessions, and you can watch either the live or. I was able to here right before we started. So, give us an idea of what's going on with that and why do folks want to check it out.
The best, we started the Nub Sessions on the premise of like, well, we're sitting around twiddling our thumbs and something's got to be done about reassuring people that, it's not over. We still, it's just a blip, So Nub Sounds and ourselves sort of thought, well, I'm at the Airfield Studios. There's a whole vibe here. Why don't we try for live stream? And we just thought, right, okay, we're going to set up a live stream platform. It's going to be live. It's not going to be pre-recorded. It is live. Some of it eventually was pre-recorded, but when we put the pre-record, you're getting it live as we're feeding it to you. So I thought, that's exciting. Let's try that.
Yeah.
And for the time being, for the moment, we've been utilizing local talent in Cornwall, where I am in the UK, southwest of the country. And we just thought, this is something for us to do. This is definitely needed. No one else is doing it. Let's have a go at it and let's try. So it's a live stream platform with news, features, meeting some amazing musicians. I play in the Bubble Band, which is the resident band that plays with other artists. And we are really proud of how we worked as far as social distancing is concerned.
Sure.
So the Bubble Band would be in another part of the studio right across the way. And you'll see us on screen. You'll see us playing live on separate screens.
Right.
And then have the artists in the main venue performing. So it's quite it's great, it's definitely worth a watch. It's entertaining. We're in your front room, wherever you are, and we entertain you and we present you some great bands and great information, great interviews within the hour of our live stream. So definitely worth checking out. I would definitely check it out.
It's called the Nub Sessions, you guys, and it's just go to YouTube and type in the Nub Sessions, and it's got a purple banner that says from the Airfield Studios.
From the Airfield Studios. The Airfield Studios is a very famous old place. It's actually on an airfield, which was one of the UK's first naval bases, which was built here in 1937, I think it was built. And when it got decommissioned, Joe Partridge, famous guitarist, played with people like Kiki D, David Essex, Worked with like Elton John. He's done quite a lot of different things. So he kind of, his father owned the farm around in the area, and the field was up for rent or up for sale. And this was like back in 1963. No one was bidding for it, so he bought it. And then the council came to him and said, "Could you? When are you going to take all the buildings down to level everything, the whole place down?" And there's like, "Well, when are you going to come and do it?" And then they never got back to him. So all the barracks and certain places are still up and standing. Wow. The studio is actually in the decontamination room. Yeah, which is quite mad. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's got a bit of history. You'll find out all the information on Nub Sessions, so you'll get all the info about us.
Check it out. And you guys in general, like YouTube is a great way to support these guys, because if you get subscribers, YouTube can sell ads over your video, which gives you a little bit of money. And so if you're into supporting these acts, this is one way to do it. And as you get more subscribers, you have access to more revenue streams. So when you're looking at so these subscriptions, these really as if it's like Patreon, same thing.
Yeah,
less money Patreon. Just do that. Click on that link on PayPal and you put it $5, $10, $20. What would you buy me lunch each month? That's what you're doing. And you support me, and I'll put that right back into the show. The same thing like with guys like Malcolm and other musicians that are trying to find new ways to bring their music to us. We've got to support this. If we can't go out locally, okay, great. But we can also now go out internationally. I wanted to ask you, Malcolm, about live, because going live in a live event, as a concert with hours and hours, when you look at bringing pedal and setting up sound guys, it's a lot of man go into making it so happen. And it's live, going live on YouTube. You all can't eliminate all those ways. The random things can happen. I might say, I really have to go with it. Is going live on YouTube harder than playing a live show?
Sorry, is go live on the what? Sorry,
going live on YouTube harder, less comfortable than doing a live show in front of.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Because live show you can fluff up a bit and you can get away with it because everyone's already just in the zone.
Yeah.
When you're live on the live stream, yeah, you're committed, and it's like, I remember doing the first Nub Sessions and I mentioned everybody else's names apart from the one that I really wanted to mention, and it was live.
Yeah.
But people love that. They love it because it's an interaction that they're not familiar with, and it's something that is real. It's like, well, I'd rather him making all these mistakes and kind of getting that wrong. Maybe that's right. But initially, the whole show's great, and we know it's live, and we know that it's a live thing. It's totally different from playing on stage to play in front of a camera.
Yeah. And with the camera, you can't even tell. Like, there's not a monitor for what it's hearing. Like, I have no idea that my mic is working. Someone says, like on stage, like, oh, my mic's not working, and you look at somebody else and they pick it up. I'm like, I'm just like,
no. You can go on stage and you're playing away and you think, I've heard you, but no one else has heard you.
Yeah. I'm having a great time. Best show ever. They're like, yeah, we didn't hear a word you said.
Yeah, what did you say? Yeah.
I want to send a shout out to my guys who do Last Evening, same kind of thing. We had a bunch of guys that had a really fun open mic. These are all music. I don't know if you know West Navy, but yes, Nick, you 45 he knows that. But together, like, we still want to play out, and so they started doing covers, but isolated, and so everything's pre-recorded. but you got this guy over here singing over here, and they did these great songs. They did Watching the Detectives, they did Band on the Run, they did Rush, Tom Sawyer, and it's the same
Yeah,
kind of
well,
thing to the audience, especially like Last Through the Moon, Dub Sessions. Go watch this stuff, and if it sticks for you, then continue to watch, continue to support, subscribe these guys, because you hear the passion. Like all of these guys, watch that show with John, Bonzo and both the Johns, and you'll get an idea of what these musicians are trying to create. I mean, it's Malcolm. All these guys are trying to sort out, how do we give you more of what we do, whether we're live on the camera or we're live on stage as soon as we can be. But support these folks that do live music, because your life will improve. I promise.
yeah, yeah.
Anything I should have asked you at all, Malcolm?
No, I think you've asked mostly anything you can ask me. Is all I would like to say is that, have faith in us. We're still at it. We still want to do what we want to do. We're doing every means we can, whether there's an audience or no audience, no feedback. We are still trying to keep the faith. Yeah. It's only a blip. We will be back. So support us now in our endeavors and keep us kind of strong for when we come out, and you can come out and we'll all be in the same room together and we'll all have fun again. So we are here, and we're strong for you, and we really want to give our all as if we were performing on stage.
Got to support that. You got to support that. All right, stand by.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you